everyone, and welcome to the tavern. Today we're doing something that I didn't expect to do, but I kind of have to because the sheer content of this new playtest has pissed me off enough to actually make commentary about it. But before I begin, let's cover a couple of important points. What are these playtests? Essentially, Wizards is putting out playtests of the new rules for One D&D. Primarily, this has been character creation and character class specific. However, it is likely that little rules will start evolving over time. Now, I know that everyone hates Wizards right now, and with good reason. Heck, I got several videos proving why you should hate Wizards. But that being said, why do we care about how they're changing characters for a game we're likely not going to play? Simply enough, this is a good way to learn how not to improve a game, and more importantly, it can demonstrate to you how the staff over at Wizards has no idea how to run Dungeons and Dragons. These changes are mind-boggling. But what's more interesting is the fact that the earlier character classes didn't get as many dramatic changes. Now, I don't want to go on too long of a tangent about the other character classes. So I'll just give you my brief notes about the earlier entries in the One D&D playtest. The first one they released was Character Origins. This was essentially their way to shift how you create a character, where your backstory becomes a lot more important, and to an extent, a lot of character creation became much more simplified to some extent. Races had some new options and some new things that were changed. More or less, they felt like balancing points. However, providing dwarves of all dwarven bonuses that the various subraces had, and kind of doing the same thing for halflings. In addition to that, new rules for half races, which allowed you to just create your own gray blob. Just kind of throw in whatever parts you want into there. Instead of those races feeling like legitimate, actual things, it's now just do whatever you want. It feels incredibly dumbed down, and in a lot of ways feels like it's making the game a lot easier than it really should be. And look, I'm not some TSR bro who only loves 2nd edition and anything after that is the worst. Frankly, I enjoyed 3rd edition to some extent, and I really like 5th edition. However, the most exciting adventures I ever had in those editions were the ones that were difficult. If you make things too easy or give the players too many powers, you're going to put yourself in a position where you feel overpowered and nothing you throw at the party will ever really match up to the threat that it should be. As for the backgrounds, there was a lot of terrible balancing there. Some backgrounds just got a whole load of gear, others basically got no gear, and then you have weird things like farmers know the halfling language, except the halfling language is a secret language spoken amongst halflings only. So, I'm sorry, but your tiefling farmer is not allowed to know halfling. That's just not how that works. Little lore-breaking things like that get really annoying. Or the randomness of who can learn Abyssal or various elemental languages. How would your background even allow for that? This is the kind of stuff that makes me worried and very much demonstrates how the current creators of D&D don't care about the lore. Why even establish lore if you're just going to step on it all the time? The second one featured the expert classes, which is made up of Ranger, Rogue, and Bard. The Bard had some changes to how inspiration works, but for the most part the Bard felt like a regular Bard. The Ranger got a lot of changes, primarily because the 5th edition Ranger was hot garbage. You can clearly tell that the One D&D Ranger is really an attempt to take the revised Ranger and bring it up one more notch to be a really worthwhile class. This is really exemplified with how they improved Favored Enemy and some of the changes made to the Hunter subclass. The Rogue is mostly unchanged, though a lot of levels where you learn different skills have been swapped around, and the Thief subclass gets Use Magical Object, which is an interesting thing that could add a little extra spice to your Rogue. The third one they released was the Cleric and Species related playtest. Clerics got some more improvements that honestly makes them even more broken than they already kind of were, such as the Holy Order ability, an improved Turn Undead, dealing damage much earlier than in 5th edition. They had a lot of good tweaks for what is already a good class. You can tell there might be a little bit of a bias for the Cleric in this era of D&D. This was also the document that established that races will now be called species. I've always been against this. Not only is race just the term we've used for a long time, but race also implies culture and heritage, while species cuts out a lot of those secondary aspects of what makes a race to begin with. Frankly, I find the use of species to be highly ignorant, because you don't want to eliminate the lore, history, and all the other aspects that make a race a race. For the most part, I had no major issues with the first 3 releases in the One D&D Play Test. While I think words like species are kind of offensive, and some of the minor changes here and there were annoying, it was never anything I felt I needed to really make a video about. And when all the drama started occurring with Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro, I became less inclined about doing a video about any of these subclasses. However, the newest one that came out, Druids and Paladins, kind of poked me in just the wrong place. So let's break down how these classes have been changed and why One D&D is going down a terrible path. The Druids have something that makes them very unique. It's called the Wild Shape. This is an ability to transform into different animal creatures. It's really cool and provides you with a whole load of secondary skills. However, for some reason, they decided to change this so that your Druid no longer transforms into an official animal in the monster manual, and instead you just become whatever you say you look like. The challenge rating limitations are no longer there, but the skills you have access to are almost non-existent. While there are ability improvements over time, you lack any of the secondary stuff that made being a specific animal really cool. Skills such as Pounce, Pack Tactics, and Frenzy are all removed from your Druid. You now have the very limited skills they've offered you and the very limited damage they've offered you. Not only that, but if you are playing a proper wild-shaped Druid, even at lower levels, you will be surpassing what a current wild-shaped Druid can actually achieve. Not only that, but Wild Shape is no longer its own skill with its own charges. It is now placed in a skill pool called Channel Nature. Channel Nature in and of itself is not a bad thing. It provides some new skills, such as Healing Blossoms, which gives you an area of effect heal where you choose who to heal, so you could actually use it in melee and not worry about accidentally healing monsters. You also have option of Wild Companion, which was an option provided in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, which allows your Druid to summon a fey creature in an animal type form that can assist you in battle. Channel Nature also gives you the opportunities to add more Channel Nature abilities within different Druid subclasses, thus allowing Druids to have a lot more versatility, but unfortunately it means choosing between your Channel Nature abilities or Wild Shape. But since Wild Shape has been horribly nerfed, maybe this isn't a bad thing, you're just turning Druids back into what they were in 2nd edition, plant-themed clerics. The Circle of the Moon subclass has been drastically changed because it has to be in order to work with this new system of Wild Shape. It allows you to cast Aberration spells early on in your Wild Shape form, and eventually gaining your standard spellcasting in Wild Shape later on as a Druid. You have access to Quick Attack, which allows you to do an unarmed attack as a follow-up in your standard form, which basically is just stealing a skill from the monk. Also, a unarmed strike for your average Druid probably is going to be garbage damage, so I don't even know why that's even there. You have the Elemental Shape, which has been completely changed. Instead of transforming into an elemental, you now add an element to yourself, providing you with some elemental defense, and give some extra flavor to what your Wild Shape looks like, which to me means the people who decided to change this wanted the ability to transform into a Pokemon, as many Pokemons will have little elemental effects that are part of their bodies. However, they will eventually get access to Elemental Strikes, which provides a little extra elemental damage in their Wild Shape form. Even with that, you're still not as powerful as transforming into an elemental, and with the original Circle of the Moon, the improved Wild Shape gave you access to some really powerful animals that would provide you with an incredibly powerful character who now becomes an amorphous gray blob with some minor elemental effects and can kind of claw people or give someone an extra little punch in the nose. Whoop-de-doo! You took one of the best classes in the game and needlessly made them garbage. Paladins do not get hurt as bad as the Druid, and in fact have some good things in here, more so than the Druid does. but it still feels like Paladins got a little bit nerfed as well. So first off, Lay on Hands can be used to remove poison, which is great, and can later be upgraded with a lot more other status ailments. Except in the original, Lay on Hands could remove poison and disease, and got an upgrade where it could remove any magical effect. So yeah, they just needlessly made Lay on Hands weaker. Divine Smite has also been weakened by removing its bonus damage to undeads and fiends. Your divine auras have been changed into a channel divinity, which at least gives you more use to your channel of divinity abilities. And you do get Abjure Foes as a new channel divinity, which allows you to essentially cause dazed or fear on enemies. But you lose divine health, which makes you immune to disease. However, you do get Fateful Steed, which allows you to cast the Find Steed spell, allowing you to summon a magical horse to be your mount. While this is kind of cool in concept, especially because this spell allows you to even gain winged horses and things like that, it doesn't entirely feel like a paladin skill so much as it feels like a cavalier skill. And I probably wouldn't make it a main paladin ability, but more likely build a subclass for the paladin around it that's essentially like a holy cavalier. There's also been some changes to the only subclass they provided us, which is the devotion subclass. You lose Turn the Unholy as one of your channel divinities. While this skill did make the paladin a little bit closer to a cleric, it feels like a major loss, as I believe paladins could do turning in 2nd edition if their level was high enough. They also lose Purity of Spirit, which provided an auto protection from good and evil on your paladin, giving them a nice little bonus. However, they do gain the ability to grant temporary HP to an ally when using their Divine Smite, and that's the only good part, because the Holy Nimbus has also been weakened, because you remove the advantage ability and lower the damage it will do initially, unless your stats are high enough to equal the original damage of the skill. The only thing you get that's new for Holy Nimbus is the ability to create sunlight, which, while very helpful against vampires, wraiths, and a few other undeads, which is a very circumstantial ability. Overall, these changes are pretty bad. The Druid gets hurt the worst, and what makes that even more terrible is the fact that, according to sources, the Druid was changed to be closer to the Druid in the Dungeons & Dragons movie. You can tell that Wizards of the Coast is betting a lot on the success of this movie, not only drawing people into Dungeons & Dragons, but also to be a big hit that will make this a more global brand than it already is. But using the movie as an excuse to change the Druid is stupid. The Druid in the movie should have followed the rules of the game, not changing the game to follow the rules of this new Druid. Not only that, but they could have made the ability for Druids to wild shape into monstrosities part of a new subclass. In fact, if you really wanted to hype the movie, they could have literally released an Unearthed Arcana that is built upon subclasses that relate to the characters in the movie so that you could play those characters at home or make your own variant of those characters for your personal games. Instead of changing the whole rule set, just make a stupid extra subclass. It's not that hard. I don't even want to rant about the movie here. In fact, I'll probably do a video about that a little later, but you can tell there's some real stupid ideas that are going into One D&D. It will be interesting to see how people respond. So far online, no one is liking any of these changes. People are really upset about the Druid, and rightfully so. Nerfing Wild Shape is a terrible idea, and I can't imagine anyone is liking this new Druid concept. I will be submitting my thoughts on this playtest alongside a lot of people on March 20th, and I will make sure to do it on the actual day this time, because I'm sure the sheer amount of negative responses will probably have them close it early, just like they have before when they get too much negative response. Whew, this was a bigger video than I expected it to be. It took me a lot longer to do this than I actually had planned to, but you know what? I think it was worth it because people should be aware of what's going on with these changes that will be happening in One D&D. Whether you dislike Wizards or not, you should be aware of what's going on with the game you do love, because if they keep making changes like this, they're bound to lose more players than they already have. But let me know in the comments what you think about these two classes. Until next time, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, share this video with your friends who love D&D and want to keep up with what's going on behind the scenes. And until next time, I'll see you at the tavern.